integument and foundation. It talks about contractures, fistula, formation, infection, hemorrhage, and etc. But keloid formation, and it shows you some pictures here of some of those things. Okay, so the point I wanted you to know is that if a person has had some type of injury and they have a wound, they will have an inflammatory response. But if the person is not running fever, there's drainage coming from the wound, it does not necessarily, those things would indicate infection. But if it's just red around the edges, that is a part of the inflammatory process, but does not necessarily mean the patient has an infection. Everybody understand? This book talks a little bit about types of wound healing, primary, secondary, tertiary healing. And you have that on your PowerPoint in terms of the definition of those primary, secondary, tertiary intentions. And what else in this chapter? Okay, it talks about how to measure a wound. What y'all did that in the lab? Tell me a little bit about that. How do you measure a wound? Okay, the length, the width, and the depth. Okay. And in figure 11.9 on page 168, it talks about looking for tunneling and undermining as well. That's the toe inside the thigh in terms of the wound. Also, this is important in terms of wound healing. On table 11.8 on page 168, it talks about factors that delay wound healing. And it talks about nutrition, the fact that vitamin C is helpful in wound healing, protein, zinc, and some other factors if you have a deficiency in those things, as well as inadequate blood supply, the fact that people that are obese and people that have diabetes and people that are in poor general health as well as having anemia can delay wound healing. Smoking can delay wound healing. So knowing some of these factors is important for the nurse. Foods that will be high in protein, vitamins, would be something that you want to encourage the patient to eat if they have problems with a wound. On page 11.9, it talks a little bit about wound dressings and the commonly used thing for wounds is gauze. And you should have seen gauze being used in the hospital setting as well as in the long-term care facility. So, you guys, are you starting clinicals yet? No. Next week? Okay. All right, then I'll open up a can of worms. Okay. Now, as a registered nurse, you need to understand that you won't be able to do everything for every patient, and that in the hospital setting, we have to have teamwork. So that means that you're going to be working with the aide of the physician, the nursing assistant, and so we many times have to delegate. So on page 170, under teamwork and collaboration, it talks about wound care and some of the roles of the registered nurse responsibilities, as well as the responsibilities of the licensed vocational nurse, of the licensed practical nurse, as well as your nurse's assistant. So make sure that you look at these things. Look at this in terms of wound care. So, the next thing in table 1110 talks a little bit about types of debridement. So what is debridement? Basically, with debridement, we want to get rid of the old dead necrotic tissue that's in a wound so that it can granulate and start healing. And in order for it to do that, we have different ways of debriding the wound, get rid of the old tissue. So on page 170, table 1110, talks about different types of debridement. First, it talks about surgical debridement. So they actually go in and with a surgical instrument kind of remove some of that old dead tissue. Mechanical debridement, it says two methods. It says wet to dry dressing. I recently was, okay, I see somebody in here that I've never seen before. Research says that this wet to dry dressing thing, it should be wet to moist or damp dressing. So you're going to put it in wet to help get the old necrotic tissue where it can adhere to the gauze to be removed when you take it out. But you don't want it, the new research says not to have it dry, because when you pull on that tissue, you also get rid of some of the good tissue. So, the article talks about wet to damp instead of wet to dry. So basically, you don't want to leave that dressing in until it gets dry. It should be damp. The other thing it says is wound irrigation under mechanical debridement. Then you can have autolytic debridement where they put a dressing on it. It says it softens the dry eschar, and when the dressing is removed, it gets rid of the debris, the dead tissue. And enzymatic debridement where you're using a solution. That Santel is a very common one. And if you were at Cornerstone or the Jewish Center, you should have seen Santel used on like a decubitus ulcer. No? The dressing got to be changed on the weekend too. Okay, as an RN, you're not going to tell anybody that, not on the weekend. That patient has to have care how often?
Every day.
24/7. Okay? Okay, so y'all didn't see it. Okay. Okay, you saw it? Okay. Okay, let me hear it, and then I want to hear you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. What were you going to say? I thought your hand up. Yeah.
Oh, I just select the mechanical debridement for test purposes. Do we go wet to dry or wet to damp?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Oh, well, you just go with what the book says. So that means I'm not going to ask that because that's a little crazy. But I just said what I said. But okay. So some sources are saying wet to dry, and I'm just telling you what the new literature says. But even though this book is 17, it's supposed to be 2017, right? This textbook. It's already behind. when they publish this book. Y'all understand that, don't you? Because things are constantly changing, but that's okay. We'll stick with the book. Okay? All right. Good question. Okay. On page 171, it talks about wound baths, negative pressure wound therapy. Have y'all seen that?
Yes.
Wound therapy.
Oh, yeah.
A bath to help get that old fluid, debris out of the wound so it can heal. Okay, so with that machine, and it shows you a picture here on page 171, how the wound looks, and then the end product. Looks pretty good, right? All right, so now, on the next page, it talks a little bit about pressure ulcers. On page 173, it talks about the different stages of ulcers. And I remember on the foundation test, you had a picture of an ulcer, and you had to tell what stage it was. So you should already know this information. Should? Oh, okay, well, review it then. Just review that, please. Okay, that's all was in that chapter. Y'all have any questions? Okay, so the next chapter is chapter 22. And what did I tell you about 22? What is that chapter about? It's about assessment, so what are you supposed to do? All right, read that. All right, y'all got me down bad. Okay, so the next big chapter, which will probably have 6 to 7, I told you when it's over 10 questions.
Yes.
So it'll be a large portion of the questions coming from this chapter, chapter 23.
Okay. So first,
this chapter it talks about sun exposure, and it talks about, I'm on page 407. It talks about specific wavelengths, and that there are 2 types of UV light, UVA and UVB. And it says that UVA is responsible for tanning, and UVB is responsible for sunburn. And the problem with tanning or getting sunburn is the fact that it makes one, it damages the skin and will increase the risk of skin cancer. So there's a lot of cancer mentioned in this chapter. However, remember for this course, what did we say about cancer? They covered all the cancers in their search too. So in terms of your reading for the chapter, you don't have to read about cancer. So then let's go to the next thing. So, and then it talks a little bit about teaching, the importance of teaching people what to wear in terms of the sun safety. They want you to avoid the sun, wear protective clothing. I'm on page 408 now, second paragraph there. Sunscreen. And it says your sunscreen should be at what level? At least 15. So sun protection factor should be at least 15. So what else does it say? Teach the patient, the third paragraph there, teach the patient ways to avoid damaging effects of the sun. This includes wearing sunglasses, a large brim hat, and a darker colored long sleeve shirt of a tightly woven fabric, carrying an umbrella. And it talks about the time of day that one is at most risk. It says 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. you see that as a major issue in Houston? All over the United States, really. But it also mentioned that fair eyes, people that have fair skin with light color eyes, are especially to be cautious about sun exposure. Okay. Okay. So, then what's the next thing here? Okay, so it talks about some things that we could do, that we need to get, in terms of skin problems, that we should be concerned about rest and sleep. Sleep helps to restore the skin. I'm on page 409 at the bottom there where it talks about rest and sleep. Skin that is itchy often interferes with sleep, so we want to try to get that itching under control before a patient goes to bed, because you want to restore the skin by getting adequate amount of sleep. Exercise, it says exercise increases circulation and dilates the blood vessels. Caution must be used to prevent overexposure to heat, cold, and sun during outdoor exercise. Hygiene is important. It talks about using a mild moisturizing soap and lipid-free cleanser, avoiding hot water and vigorous scrubbing to decrease local skin irritation and inflammation. Okay, it says the normal acidity of the skin and perspiration protects against bacterial overgrowth. It says that the most soaps are alkaline and neutralize the skin surface, leading to loss of protection. So, are you guys watching your soap? Have you thought about that?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yes, no.
Okay. So, this is important in terms of reading some information that it helps you through your life and that you can educate other people. That we need to look at our soap that we're using. That the skin basically, you want to keep it acid, because when it becomes alkaline, you can have an overgrowth of bacteria. So, and we're going to look at some of these diseases of the skin, and they don't look nice. So hygiene is important. And then it talks a little bit about nutrition, and you need to have a well-balanced diet, you need to have vitamins in that diet, and talk a little bit about people that are overweight, more susceptible to problems with the skin. So, we're going to spend a lot of time on bacterial infections on page 413. And if you look at the chart for 414, table 23.5, talks about common bacterial infections of the skin. And I want to pull up a few here.
Causes sores and blisters. This highly contagious skin infection is very common and affects mainly young children. It is for this reason that it is often called school sores. There are two types of school sores. The first type is bullous, which causes large, painless blisters. The other type, non-bullous, is much more contagious, as it causes sores that quickly rupture. These ruptured sores then scab over to leave a yellow-brown crust How can I treat it? You can usually leave school sores to heal on their own. However, antibiotic cream is often prescribed to help prevent the infection from spreading. After 24 hours of treatment, or once the sores have crusted over, most people are no longer contagious. To reduce the risk of school sores from spreading, then you should avoid touching the sores, wash your hands regularly, stop sharing flannels, sheets or towels, and keep your child home from school until their sores have dried up. If the blisters continue to produce fluid a week after starting treatment, then go back to your GP for a further checkup.
All right, so in this chart, it talks about the etiology and patho of impetigo that is caused by group A hemolytic streptococci and staphylococcal bacteria. Says that it can be associated with poor hygiene, and you can have primary or secondary infections, and it is contagious. And knowing a little bit about the honeycomb crust that you saw in the picture is one of those.
Impetigo is a contagious local superficial infection involving epidermis. Let us now.
You just pause and click on the video.
Okay, I don't want to show that.
Just pause and it where you have to.
Oh, okay.
Click on it.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So what do they have in terms of treatment? It says that you can have a topical treatment or it can be systemic. So the person can take like ointments or creams to put on antibacterial ointment or cream, and then they can take antibiotics, and they suggest cephalosporin and clindamycin and amoxicillin. Okay, just to give you some examples. Okay, the other bacterial infection here is folliculitis. Oh, so y'all don't see no pictures. There's somebody going. Okay.
What is the hair follicle? And itis is inflammation. So folliculitis is the inflammation of the hair follicle. And this can account for a variety of different reasons. It can account from irritation from clothing, from biking, from spandex, from shorts, where you get an irritation around the hair follicle. Women can get it in their lower legs from constant shaving or ingrown hair follicles or bacterial contamination. But it's generally used to signify some sort of a bacterial type of inflammation around the hair follicles, either our trunk and body, and doctors usually sometimes give an antibiotic if it's very severe, or an antibacterial body wash, So, we guess on the scalp, same similar treatments depending on the clinical situation. Folliculitis can be very mild, but in some cases in the scalp it can be very severe, and it can progress to what's called as infecting folliculitis, which can cause a lot of hair loss and a lot of scarring, and that is something that you do not want. So if you do have a lot of inflammation in the scalp, pimples, something that you should see your dermatologist to get the appropriate treatment.
Okay, so it says that it's caused by staph, present in areas subject to friction, moisture, rubbing, or oil. Incidence is increased with people with diabetes. Small pustules at the hair follicles, and they can have some swelling, redness, erythema. And it talks about treatment here in terms of topical antibiotics and anti-staphylococcal soap. A heavy cleanse, we see that in the hospital a lot. Heavy cleanse for patients that are going to surgery or something, that's a heavy cleanse. But leave us 2,000. Everybody seen that in the grocery store?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Go ahead.
I got it.